Hey everybody, we're at our properties here in the beautiful Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. So many times we've done Q&As online, but you don't know who's behind the keyboard a lot of times. So now here's one of the faces that answers your questions. My name's Chris. We've got the beautiful Leia. She's going to be asking the questions that you have submitted over the last 2 weeks, and I'll answer as truthfully as possible. I'll keep the profanity out of it, but it's one of those things where I'm going to be completely honest, because I'm going to tell you how it is in my mind. Just going to get those liabilities out of the way. The answers are going to be my opinions. They don't in any way reflect any businesses, the locations that we're at, anybody else in the group. I've just been chosen to answer it out of all of us. So yeah, if you got anything to say, put it on me and nobody else. Let's get into this.
All right, Chris, man, I'm excited. I've spent some time with you here in Dominican, and you know, I've got to know who you are. So I got a couple questions for you.
Shoot.
All right, man. So something that's been important to me, and I always thought about this because growing up in the millennial generation, it's important to ask these questions.
To the old folk.
To the old folk.
Right.
What would you tell those who spend all their money and credit to live above their means?
Oh, we're hitting it hard early. Holy shit.
And let's focus on the image part. Like, you know, living above their means for the image.
See, this is a bad example because there's obviously going to be an age difference between, say, your group and my group. This looks like, you know, you're living large. But this is 2 decades worth of work as an entrepreneur to get here to own property in different countries. So let's go back to the question at hand. You're talking more so for your age group. How important is it to not do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, and hindsight's always 20/20, but what you do in your 20s and how efficiently you run your 20s dictates the rest of your lives. It's the most important part of your life. Something as simple as a car payment, what you pay for a car payment, the insurance for it and stuff like that, just the money you put into a car payment, if you invested that through 6 to 8 years of your 20s, means you'd never have to put money away again in your 30s or later on. You just let that grow. In your 30s and 40s, you can just spend all of your money, but what you put away in your 20s sets you up for retirement. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is 100% true. Investments work with time. It doesn't matter where the markets go. So I guess back to the question, don't look rich. Be rich. It just takes more time. So hopefully that answered what you asked. Okay.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's hard. You see a lot of people in my age generation, and that's what they focus on. So that segues into my next question, man. So what's some financial or investing books that you read, and specifically, who's the public figure that you listen to?
Probably not an answer that someone wants to know, but absolutely none of that. I'm lucky enough to have mentors, you know, they're in the 8, 9, 10, 11 figure net wealth kind of thing. They're the type of people that I go to for knowledge on anything in life, not just investing. I find reading books, you only ever take what you pull off the page. So you may not be getting the message that they're trying to say. And a lot of times those books, the only person that makes money when those books are written are the author and the publishing house. Let's just call it like it is. Somebody getting rich off that information, but it's not the person reading it. It's very hard to stay motivated when you're reading. And when you talk about public inspirational people, they're better talkers than they are actually. They love to get you all riled up, motivational speech. And then you go home, you wake up the next day and you're like, oh damn, now I'm on my own again. And then you just wasted, you know, $500, $1,000, $3,000 for their seminar. So I actually don't listen to or read any of that stuff.
I like that answer, man. I think that's important because getting through a financial advisor book or getting through a book that someone else wrote about their life and how it worked for them is pretty hard to follow through.
Not that there aren't good ones, but because I haven't read them, I can't say which are good and which aren't. Yeah. But when people have come to me with, oh, I read this in the book, I'm like, that is 2 decades of an entrepreneur. I'm telling you right now, that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And then go through all the different variables that they didn't even think of. They just got you all worked up.
What does retirement mean to you?
Until I got there, I really didn't have a good Like I knew what I thought retirement was. It's, oh my God, you don't work, you do whatever you want, and I got to get a lot of money. Once you get there, it actually just means you own your time. Nobody's punching a clock on you. Nobody's signing your paychecks. I've been busier since retirement because when you get to wake up and do, I don't want to say whatever you want, but whatever interests you, then all of a sudden you take interest in everything you do, which means if you're doing it for a financial gain, your heart's in it, your mind's in it, and you're always focused. So success comes even more after retirement. That's the whole reason to push for retirement as early as possible in life.
That's also something that's important to me, is kind of getting to know your upbringing, like your education, to making the moves to get where you are. How'd you get here, man?
Oh, man. I don't know. I guess I'll be completely honest here. People would call the way I grew up a broken home. Mom, single mom, 3 boys, living on a very, very tight budget, in the 80s kind of thing. And this isn't for a sob story. This isn't even for motivation. Just the question was asked. Basically, I looked at my scenario. No one in my family had wealth. Didn't really have instruction. No one that could guide me along. So I figured I'm going to make the moves that I thought was to get me further ahead. So I did what I thought I could do. I worked hard, that kind of stuff. Working hard isn't necessarily going to get you anywhere, but having the right work ethic you can apply to anything. So I became an entrepreneur at 17. I wasn't doing it right, but I had the mindset that I was going to do it differently, because doing it the average way gets you average things. I don't want a 9-to-5. I don't want the Freedom 65 lifestyle. I didn't know how to get there, but I at least started early doing that. So I was actually importing from Japan going on my 18th birthday. And I had 2 jobs in the meantime to support myself with a business group. And that was completely by accident, but that's a completely different thing.
I'm curious, now that you are where you are, do you allow just regular people to get involved in your business investments or your investment circle?
Regular people. I mean, I'm a regular people. We have allowed, people to be part of what we do. It just gets difficult because without the business mindset, a lot of people think you just give money or you invest and it just goes up. Or how quickly is my return? And it's very difficult to talk to them about that kind of stuff, because there may be no significant return for 6 to 8 to 12 months, in some cases 2 years. And then a lot of people get very, they panic. Much like a lot of people shouldn't play stocks because they do it emotionally. That's a terrible move. But to answer the question, yeah. Anyone who wants to get involved in the kind of stuff we do, whether it's real estate, foreign investment, and all that kind of stuff, everybody eats at our table. Everybody gets to make money. And it's just a matter of being diligent, asking the right questions, and knowing what you want out of something. And then just watching how it unfolds. And then later on, you can do it on your own.
Knowing that, the people that you surround yourself around, the things that you're around, and where you came from, what's your thoughts? Do you think people should put money back into their community? Or if so, how much? If you had a number, what do you think?
That touches on a lot of points. You got a lot of the generation now who think that wealthy people are the enemy. We've indoctrinated our society to believe that money only came from like cons, scams, taking it from people, being some gigantic entity. But what people don't realize is they all have to start from somewhere, and typically they gave you a product that you were buying, so they generated their wealth. And a lot of people think, well, you got all this money, why don't you go solve all the world's problems? And they assume that these people don't do good things because those type of people don't spend their time on social media. You would never know if a Jeff Bezos went and gave $1 billion to a charity, because most of that stuff is done with NDAs. Nobody talks about it. That's a non-disclosure agreement. You wouldn't know that because their life wasn't made or isn't built on social media. They do their stuff. They don't need an applause, a pat on the back. They don't need gratification. They did it because they wanted to. And even if it was for the tax benefits, they still do that. So to circle back to the question, I do believe it's important to give back to your community. I mean, the more you make, the more you pay in taxes. What the government does with that, I can't comment on. But when you start making, you're in the 6-figure club and then the 7-figure club, there really is no tax avoidance. You're giving back your share. So above and beyond that, I leave that up to people. Obviously, we do things that we find important. We always make sure we load up the food bank with as much food as they need during the holidays. No, this isn't me patting myself on the back. We'll leave it at that. We do what we do because we believe we should. I don't put expectations on anybody else.
It's good to hear your viewpoint on that, because obviously this generation is the camera generation. We like to be able to show everything that we do.
Yeah.
So
well, they didn't post it on Instagram,
yeah,
so they clearly
happened.
didn't do anything good for the world.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue into what I was thinking about. So what would be something you consider your biggest setback to success? We all have setbacks, but what do you feel is something the biggest, maybe even something that made you think about giving up?
To my success, or a usual, like any day, someone trying to get ahead?
I would say any day, even any day. It can go both ways, yours and any day.
Giving a shit what other people think. Get that out of your head right now. If your answer to, go back to that excessive spending as a youth, if your answer for why did you buy that, you didn't need it, well, I don't want people to think, blah, 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 I can't afford it, I'm not doing as well as them, I gotta look good, you look how you feel, you represent yourself, dress for the job that you want, not the one that you have. You think about that shit. You dress for the job you want, not the one you have. That's why you waste your money to look good. The job you want still means you're working for somebody else, because when you're your boss, you determine how. I'm working today. This is work. I'm not lying to you. I got stuff to do. Meetings are at the pool, and that's not a me versus you. That's a do not worry about what other people think, because trying to impress other people is going to cost you too much, and it's going to slow you down. So just go back to that saying. If their opinion ain't making you money, the opinions don't matter. Done.
In regards to everything that's been happening in your life, this is really more so something that's intriguing for me. What was your first investment? What did you first invest in?
Again, I listened to my mom because she worked at a bank as just, a teller. Didn't know back then that, because we had no money, it wasn't the best advice. So I got RSPs. Now, biggest mistake. The moment I learned what RSPs do, I quickly cashed them, took my penalty, and never did that again. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good idea for you, because if that's going to be your only means of saving, investing for retirement, they're great. But when you find out what that's actually going to do to you on the back end, if you do make other money, and you've got your pensions, you've got your other stocks and investments that you have, that combined with that, you're going to end up losing 70 to 80% of everything you put into.
Okay. Good to know. These are things I didn't know about, so that's good to hear.
Some of that stuff gets pretty ugly, and you don't want to find out at 60, 65 that you don't have the money you thought you did.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. We're living in a really crazy world right now, but some people are predicting a massive recession very soon. What's your thoughts? And also, how can businesses that are still reestablishing prepare themselves? We didn't prepare for COVID, so there's a lot of things that I'm intrigued about with that.
Well, if there's still people out there that think that we're predicting that we're going to go into a recession, where have you been since 2014? There's band-aids getting slapped on by our governments handing out money. That only makes it worse. We've been in a recession since 14. But recession means different things to different people. Recession to the average person, they got to worry about keeping their job. Recessions to investors means cha-ching, we're going to be buying all the stuff that we wanted to buy at a fraction of the cost. So don't hate me for saying that. I told you I was going to be honest, because I want people to take what we're saying and change the way they think. Instead of just getting mad at me for saying that, say, how do I be one of those people next time this happens? Set yourself up differently. That's what I'm getting at. People thought, and again, don't care what people think. Back in 19, when, this is even before COVID, my people internationally said, look, something something's going to be happening big time in the next 6 months. They didn't know it was COVID. They just knew some type of market. It just kept doing this since like 13, 14. That doesn't happen. You got inflated markets and all that kind of stuff. They're like, liquidate whatever you don't actually need and have as much liquidity as possible. So back in August, September of 19, I liquidated my cars, brought back a pretty penny, high 6 figures, got rid of my watches. Everybody's like, oh, Chris bankrupt. He's broke now. He don't have his AP. He don't have his gold Rolex. I never really wore that shit anyways, but it was just one of those things that you acquire either as gifts from business or you treat yourself every once in a while. So I got rid of it all, which gave me a huge sum of liquidity to start buying. And then COVID hits. No one expected it, but man, we got some stuff pretty cheap. We'll end that there because the more I talk about that, I think people are going to get more mad.
Well, I appreciate your honesty.